Good day, everyone. Thank you for joining us here for a new session here on the Shift Network Sound Healing Summit. We always appreciate having you with us. And our special guest coming up today is Rich GOODHART. Rich GOODHART is an internationally respected world music multi-instrumentalist, composer, recording artist, and gifted master shamanic sound healing practitioner. He is also a Qigong Tai Chi teacher, author, and core instructor on the Omega Institute faculty. His newest album of sound medicine meditations is titled Forest River Pathway, and he is also the author of 2 books of luminous invocations and sound healing essays titled The Sound Inside the Sound and Shaman Mirror Medicine Tree. Rich, welcome.
Yes. Hello, Alec. Thank you.
Yeah, happy to have you here in this context. As for years, I've been an admirer of your writings and thoughts that I've seen you publish in various online forums and platforms. So thank you for sharing that. So happy to have you here to share some of those thoughts and insights. But before we go on talking about music and sound, I understand you'd like to start us off with a little sound experience, a little sonic invocation to get us going. So
yeah, just a little mini sound invocation is what you said. It's a great way to put it. Okay, we'll begin.
Thank you. Very beautiful. It's a perfect way to start. Do you want to just play for the rest of the hour? We don't have to talk at all if you don't.
Sure, why not?
No, we will do both because you will be sharing another sound experience very soon here in the session, and we'll also guide people where they can hear more of your music and sound creations. But just go back to the speaking part for a little bit. You have such a deep background and so many things to share, but I think start with sort of a big frame topic, because in one of your writings, I recently saw a passage with a phrase to the effect that expressed a view that of sound medicine as an alternate paradigm reality and mystical experience. So that's a very intriguing statement. So would you like to tell us a little more about what you mean by that and how it relates to your sound work?
Well, a lot of my friends and colleagues in the sound healing world are very much into the science of sound and research. And I think that's great. It's not anything against it at all. I mean, I'm always reading studies and love it when they share their own research. And, I engage that world as well. But I don't believe that it's all in the science. It's not all in analyzing, the frequencies, or setting up protocols that you repeat in this, in a scientifically controlled situation. I think there's a very big realm of sound healing that is this alternate paradigm where it's really nonverbal. It's non-linear. It's not logic and rational, so-called rational thinking. It's a realm where you you go into the sound, and there's a whole landscape in there. There's a kind of landscape that you learn to listen to. Listening is a very big part of it. You learn to listen to this landscape. You learn the topography, the how to navigate and experience the sound in this realm that is not at all linear. It's almost like in a dream world, but not in doing it in the waking world with the sound.
Yeah, it's opening up some big thoughts because in that context, I also heard you talk about thoughts about how sound and music can be thought of as like alive, like communicating energy and states of consciousness. So
there is this whole element of communicating with the sound. And I say alive, somewhere I wrote it, I may have put alive in quotes, because I don't anthropomorphize, is that the word? I don't give sound consciousness. Sometimes we speak in a way about it that would almost indicate that sound has a consciousness of its own. And I'm not necessarily saying that, but it's alive in that in how it interacts with your own consciousness. And kind of like, it's often said, oh, the sound, I even say this, the sound will know what to do, the sound will do what it needs to do. But it's that realm where it's interacting with your own consciousness. Almost like water running down a stream. The water knows what to do, but the water isn't saying, I'm going to go left, I'm going to go right, I'm going to go over this rock. It's just where the path has been laid for the water to flow, and the water can flow in the path. In the same way, with shamanic sound healing, or any kind of sound medicine, really, the idea that the sound knows where to go, it's how it interacts with your own consciousness. Your own, what is going on with you, with your energy body, with your fears, your woundings, your traumas, your injuries, whatever is being worked with, that sets up pathways for the sound to travel in. And then the sound knows where to go because it follows the pathway. So it's alive in that sense, that it's very interactive. There's, when you develop this ability to work in the sound, you see, it's hard to talk about it because it's a realm that, the words, you hear the interaction of the sound, you hear the directive of the sound, and you learn to listen for that. And so then you, as a practitioner, you can direct the sound, work with the sound as it flows with, the situation at hand, with your client, with the group, whatever.
I like that perspective. I've often thought similar things. And if I'm hearing what you're saying, the sound is alive, and you did put that in quotes, alive in the sense that it births that relationship and synergy with the sound coming from without versus what it triggers within, that opens those gateways to your own higher consciousness, your higher self, your guides. People have different metaphors. Is that a fair?
Yes. Yeah. Your higher self, your energy field, your energy body, where it is at that time. And healing, if you're doing healing work, this is a lot of what this is about. What is needed with the sound to bring about healing. Another thing that is often talked about is the idea of, are you a healer or not? And some people are very adamant that, not to use the word healer. I mean, I don't call myself a healer. I do not call myself a shaman. I work with shamanic practices, and I work with, a healing practice with sound. I don't call myself those things. But at the same time, I think, the practitioner is an important part of the equation. The attunement of the practitioner, where your self-development and consciousness and overall physical, mind, spirit, body, emotional attunement is at, as a practitioner, is a big part of that. Because you are, yes, the person that needs the healing is the one who ultimately heals themselves. You heal yourself, but the practitioner can instigate the healing response, through the sound and through the consciousness of the practitioner.
That's a great perspective too, because I think it opens up a very rich plateau that allows for a lot of individual diversity. Does call a quote, I forget the exact tradition they were referring to. It may have been some sort of Ayurvedic concept, but it was based along the lines of, in healing, so quote unquote, there's three elements. There's the actual treatment, which is in this case would be the literal sound, the frequency. There's the practitioner, the healer, and the patient. And it's the relationship between the two of them that synergistically contributes to the effect. It's not one thing in isolation. It's a holistic relationship between practitioner, sound,
and there is some, sound healing practices that I've seen in certain trainings where it's just about, this bowl for this chakra, play them this way. It's kind of very external, prescriptive, almost pharmaceutical in that, you apply this sound, this bowl. I'm pointing to my bowls. I realize my bowls aren't on the screen, but I have a couple bowls that I played in the beginning here. But this work is not about that. It's not about the prescriptive way of approaching sound.
I'm glad you mentioned that too, because that is a big topic that actually not honestly triggers some pet peeves of mine, but maybe we'll come back to that because I want to make sure we continue to address the shamanic traditions. And we're using that term in a broad stroke way. Shamanic applies to such a wide variety of different traditions and practices from all around the globe and throughout history. But it's just to bring it back to your work. But so how have insights and thoughts from the influences from the shamanic tradition informed and inspired your own approach to sound work?
Well, I've worked with a number of people in shamanic practices and shamanic trainings. My best, or my most longest running sound healing teacher, friend, mentor was Sarah Benson, a woman that I think was not my first teacher, but my first real, I worked with her for 10 years, the last 10 years of her life, as an ongoing mentorship, training and collaboration in cohort. We eventually worked together doing sound work. And she, more than anybody, was a sound shaman that I know that I've worked with. I mean, there are others, and there are others that I worked with that was just shamanic practices. But Sarah was a very powerful person. And something that I got from her that has also been confirmed in other shamanic practices is the importance of finding your own medicine. Again, it's not about a prescriptive, this practice is not about learning, prescriptions and methods. It's about your own attunement and going into that and finding your own medicine. And, learn from me, but don't try to copy me. It's something that I think Doug Boyd said in his book on Rolling Thunder. When he studied with Rolling Thunder, there was somewhere that was expressed that, observe what I do, learn from what I do, but don't try to do what I do. The medicine here in the shamanic path is to discover your own relationship with spirit, your own relationship in this case with sound, focusing on the sound aspect of shamanism, is learning to uncover your own medicine.
And thank you for mentioning Sarah Sarua Benson, because I had the privilege, as you know, I had the privilege of interacting with her too for many years. She was a key figure at our Jonathan Goldman Healing Sounds Intensive, and she was also one of Jonathan's primary first teacher in the world of sound.
Yeah.
So you're in a great lineage there, because she was one of the true heavyweights of sound healing.
Well, there's two things, and Jonathan, I think, has said both of these, and I agree with him that she was sound healing's best kept secret, and also primary teacher of teachers.
She
And the first,
was.
she was, yeah. And the first time I experienced her, I met her. There was a Sacred Arts Week retreat at the Abode of the Message in New Lebanon, New York. And I was brought in to do some drumming circles for that. And Sarah was there doing her work. So that's where I first experienced her work. And we were in a room, a circle. It was about 18 to 20 of us in this particular session with her. And she went around the circle one by one and focused on each person, and then sounded what she called sounding the soul. She would tune into their soul essence. And then she had her voice, of course. Voice was very big with her work. But she also had a drum, shakers, flute, some Himalayan bowls. I don't remember what else she had. And each person, she would just focus in on them, tune into their soul essence, and then play or sing or even sometimes speak messages back to them. And everyone was unique, everyone was different. I didn't know everybody in the class, but of the five or six people that I knew, everyone seemed totally right on, like she was really like tuning into their essence. She came to me, whom she had only recently just met, within like the day or so we had met. And she did me, and it would just feel like she totally tuned in. The rhythm she chose on the drum, the chant, she was singing and playing and speaking my music. And then she ended, and I just said, thank you. And she put her hand up. I'm not done yet. And then she spoke a message, which I won't repeat here because some of this stuff is very, personal, and I don't need to advertise it. But it was a message that was right on, and again, this I tie this in with your question. It was her demonstration of this shamanic realm, nonlinear, non-prescriptive consciousness, where you go in and you're present and you listen to the field, and then the sound speaks. Because again, the sound, quote, knows where to go because it's going into the channels that the consciousness in the energy field in the body of the patient or the client or whatever. So I really got that from Sarah right from the beginning.
Thank you for sharing that. And so just take a brief moment to encode a thank you, blessings, and dedication to Sarah Benson, who was a brilliant master. So thank you for invoking her presence here on this Sound Summit.
Yeah.
But since that time, you've also gone on to lead a lot of groups and workshops of your own. So related to one of the themes you're just talking about, maybe say a little bit more about your own healing and mystical experiences via sound, both for yourself, or if you prefer to talk about experiences of group members that you've facilitated.
Well, I'll speak of both. I've been a musician since early teenage years, going back to the 70s. It's been a while. And I was drawn, in the 70s really drawn to the progressive art rock movement. And in particular, standouts were the band Yes, their classic 70s work, Close to the Edge, Tales from Topographic Oceans. And that already led me into music as a way of journeying, of going into a world, or it wasn't escapist. I did not see it as or feel it as, and looking back, I don't see it as, an escapist rock and roll fantasy or something. It was music that was designed to open consciousness and to take you into a realm of expansion. And so I had that already. And then as I became more of a musician, more serious about music, playing myself, that was always a primary draw of working with music. So I was at the Cal Arts, California Institute of the Arts, in the mid 80s. And I had developed a real problem with my arm and side of my hand. And it was from practicing a lot, playing piano, learning tabla, classical Indian drumming. Developed a real chronic stress syndrome, and didn't have, went to chiropractors, massage therapists, even went to a doctor, even went to a neurosurgeon. I won't get into all that, but none of that helped. But then one night at school, there was a big new music festival, and an artist had created these large ceramic drums that we had helped skin. And so there was this whole setup in the main lobby outside of a concert hall. And myself and 4 or 5 of my hand drumming friends, I had the idea that we would be ready and waiting on the drums as soon as the main concert let out and people started coming out of the concert hall. We would start jamming on these drums. I don't remember whose idea it was. It was a great idea. And we had it 2 nights. And so there was a lead drum in the center. And the first night I was not on the lead drum. And it was great. And 100, 200 people came out of this concert hall and just focused in on us and started grooving and dancing to the drumming. The second night, I was on the lead drum. So I was the center of the whole experience. And with all these people just crowding in around us and their energy and them cheering us on, and we're grooving on the drums, I suddenly started feeling energy around me in the floor, just in the whole presence. And it was focusing from the other drummers into my drum, the lead drum. And then it started rising up from the ground up through my body. And I was just witnessing this and, wow, this is cool. Hope I don't lose it. It's just a cool experience with the drumming and the energy. But then it moved through me and it moved through my arm and it healed my arm. Something that I'd been dealing with at that point for 4 or 5 months probably, of an ongoing chronic condition that no other, work, no other methods that I tried helped. It was healed. And afterwards, over the next few days, there was a little bit of it there, maybe 90% gone, maybe 10%, enough to just say, hey, remember, be aware, be aware of what you're doing. So that was the episode that really made me aware of this energy field and how it can be activated through sound. Another, I could spend a huge amount of time talking about this. I won't. I'll just offer one other story of a student. For 10 years, I taught at the Omega Teen Camp, and I did this work with teenagers. And one morning we were doing it, a journey in sound medicine journey. I play a lot of instruments when I do it. I have my gong, Himalayan bowls, Native American flutes, drums, dusangoni, it's a stringed instrument, other things, sansa, and voice, of course. So I did this journey, and then I go around the circle, and ask the kids to share what they experienced. And this one girl was really kind of worried and concerned, and she said, I saw my mom and she was riding a train, and I thought, okay, that's interesting. But then the train crashed, and I was worried, what's going on? But then my mom, she said, Mom, what's going on? And her mom came to her in the vision and said, don't worry, I'm okay. Well, to keep this really short, that evening she called home, and turns out her mom was in a car accident that day. She wasn't on a train, but it was at a train crossing. So there was the train essence was there, the train tracks, the train, things that cross. And she was in an accident that day, totaled her car. Police were called, ambulance came. She was shaken up, but she was okay, just like she said in the vision. And then this girl, I don't remember her name, but she said, Rich, and get this, we figured out when the accident occurred, and it happened at the exact time that we were doing the sound journey. So that was another thing. There's my own experiences, and then there are countless experiences with students or clients or group, experiences that just, yes, you can say this is anecdotal information, but as far as I'm concerned, I have enough of these experiences that is proof. To me, that's, proof that in the shamanic journey, the shamanic visioning, you can drop into a state of mind, a state of consciousness where the perception is not local to space or time. Meaning not local to time, you could tune into something from the past, you could tune into something from the future. I have plenty of stories on that, but not local to space. But in this case, with this girl and her mother in the car accident, it was right in time. She was tuning into something happening at that moment, but happening of where the camp was and where I think she lived, probably 50 to 70 miles away. She tuned in and had a reading on this event that was occurring.
That is a trip. Thank you for sharing. Is that because on the theme we've been talking about this whole time, sound is a gateway to opening alternate consciousness and perceptions. In this case, it's what would probably typically referred to as a remote viewing experience and sound.
Yeah, and that's what a really primary element of the shamanic sound healing is that done well, it can take you into a state of consciousness where it opens up your perceptions. You can perceive energy, you can perceive your own healing, your own energy body, your own field, your traumas, your fears, your wounding, your love, everything. It can be perceived energetically and can be worked with the sound. And allows your consciousness, it's something that we all have. We've all had, in one way, I don't think it's anything special. We've all had intuitions that prove to be true. We've all tuned in to something, we've all experienced these things. But with the sound, it's a way to actively engage that and to develop the ability to enter that realm and have that kind of perception, which, can answer questions, it can bring healing, it can release traumas. Another one, I won't tell this whole story, but I was doing it in a huge group at Omega one time with over 200 people in the main hall, and I was doing a shamanic sound medicine. And there was a man right in the front row, and I noticed him. I didn't think much of it, I just was aware of him. And the next day I saw him and he asked me if he could tell me his story. And I won't tell the whole story, but he was in the Vietnam War and actually in Laos and flying a helicopter and doing rescue missions. And you mentioned remote viewing. He was actually part of the remote viewing program to locate MIAs, missing in action servicemen who were maybe hiding out in the jungle somewhere. And he said he was the best at it. He did like 14 in a row and located every one. And then there was one where they located him and they flew in with a helicopter and he was reaching to help the guy up onto the helicopter and he stepped. You see, the emotion even of what the client experiences is so powerful. He stepped on a landmine and blew up right in front of him. And the short of it is that, for 45 years from that time to when he experienced the sound medicine, he said he'd been carrying the trauma and the guilt with him his entire adult life. And in the sound journey, he said, I was back in the jungle. I heard the sounds you were making were the sounds of the jungle and the sounds of the helicopter. And I was immediately apologizing. I thought, he said, oh, no, not at all. he was able to relive the experience, to witness it, without, dispassionately or whatever you want to call it. He was able to be an observer and witness that whole scene again and realize that it wasn't his fault and that he could let go of 45 years of guilt and fear and trauma. That's probably the most, if I never do this again for anyone, that's the most profound, example I think that I can speak to.
Thank you for sharing that. It's a powerful story and just thought-provoking on many levels. I guess back to the broad stroke, how the sound, you never know what it's really going to do, but it's just unique for the individuals, because he had that experience and someone else listening could have been thinking about their mother or whatnot. It was a unique.
Yeah, with 200 people in the room, not everybody has a shamanic visionary experience every time. Not everybody has the sound healing. Something I say when I do this work, I say, the one thing I'll promise you is you'll have an experience with sound. Beyond that, I can't say. And like that, this guy had this profoundly healing experience. Out of 200 people, other people certainly had some kind of visionary experience. It may have been with their mother, it may have been, any number of things.
So I often had a related thought back at the late great Healing Sounds intensives shepherded by Jonathan and Andy Goldman. We'd often, like you were just talking about, have these group experiences of sound, and it's the same set and setting. Everyone's in the same place, hearing the same sound, and then you go for feedback afterwards. And some people would be like, "Oh, that was kind of neat. I felt relaxed." And the person in the next chair would be, "Oh my God, I traveled to the 9th dimension and I met my spirit guides and the archangels and all this stuff."
Yeah.
And neither experience is better or worse than the other. No judgment, but just totally unique and individual journeys.
And that's what we're working with the teenagers. They're so receptive and open to it. And I mean, adults too. I'm nothing against adults, but the teenagers really seemed super receptive to it. And a lot of times they had things like you just said, traveling to the 9th dimension and finding my spirit guides, and, climbing up a tall mountain and coming to the peak, and there was this purple light hanging over. And inevitably, in these circles where I would have like 25 kids, teenagers, there would be somebody in the circle that would be experiencing the same thing. So as someone on the other side of the circle. It's like, "Oh, I climbed that mountain too, and I saw the purple light." There would be that shared experience quite often amongst the teenagers.
Okay, that gets into an interesting topic too, in the groups, how there's this powerful group mind synergy that forms so quickly when there's a group coming together, synergistically sounding.
And something for me as the practitioner, this is an important part of it, a very important part of it, was to develop the ability to listen, of course. But the learning in these practices, and I got a lot of this from Sarah and other people, is learning what to bring to the session, but equally important is learning what not to bring to the session, is learning not to come in with agendas. I can't go in there thinking, "Oh, I'm going to do this for these people. I'm going to create this experience." I'm just creating the experience and letting the sound speak. Again, like with the group mind with the kids, you tune into the field. What's the feel today? What's the field this morning or this evening? And you tune into that feeling and you go with that and allow the sound to lead. Like I did that brief intro there, I knew I was going to hit bowls and use my voice and play the halusi, that instrument, but I didn't know what I was going to play on it. And when I do a bigger experience and I have all sorts of instruments, I don't know what I'm going to play. Probably not everything is going to get played. Sometimes I used to think, "Oh, I'll start with that instrument," and as soon as I went quiet and allowed the sound to speak, I may have never touched that instrument in the entire session, even though my thinking mind thought, "Oh, maybe I'll start with that tonight." Because the practice, again, is knowing what to bring, but also equally knowing what not to bring, and not bringing agendas, not bringing plans, not bringing personal intentions that I'm going to do this or that, and allowing having your presence in your personal attunement such an important part of it. I practice Qigong, I've done yoga, I've done, practiced meditation for many years. I mean, I still do, but there were certain techniques that I did along the way, and then I did other techniques. And now the primary work is the meditation is sitting with an instrument, using voice, also practicing Qigong, all these things to work on your personal attunement. So that's what you bring. But a big part of that personal attunement is what you don't bring, is clearing out, even if you have something emotional and something profound happen to you and something's on your mind, when you come to that moment of doing the work, you need to let it go and just be present and allow the sound to speak.
Thank you for that, because it's always a powerful perspective and very constructive one to keep in mind for any sound healing practitioner, or even, more conventional musicians. As we, in the sound field, we often cite the St. Francis prayer that, "Oh Lord, make me an instrument," as in, that intention to become a clear channel and vehicle and vessel for sound, which is in turn opens up the gateway to what you've been talking about the whole time, that higher self guidance. So thank you for that. Yeah. But before time runs away from us, I'd like to go back to the experience of sound. I understand that you have another piece you'd like to share. Is there anything you would like to say about that before we begin, or just let it play?
Nothing really to say. It's a piece off of my last album, Forest River Pathway. And it's part of an extended series of pieces that's a sound medicine journey. So this is like one chapter in the sound medicine journey. And it's what I do in the studio. So there's a lot of me playing. When I do it live, obviously there's only one of me with a lot of instruments. But this is a recorded version.
Very good. So let us just let the music do the talking. We'll come back in a few moments. Ah, well, thank you for sharing that. There is some good mojo on that piece. And it's quite a soundscape, all kinds of different instruments going on there. And did you play them all?
On that piece, yeah, all dozen or so of those musicians were from my hand.
That's brilliant. What were some of the couple of a few of the main instruments featured there?
Well, the instrument that it starts with is this instrument right here, the Dusingoni, which is a West African harp lute. Ooh. And from Mali and Gambia. And then there were, of course, various hand drums, African and Middle Eastern hand drums, shakers, melodica at first, the first passage section of it. The melodica, the wind-blown instrument, kind of sounds like a harmonica almost. And then stringed instruments, dulcitar, it's a little four-stringed instrument. And even some cosmosonic trance banjo is in there. Now, it wasn't featured, but if you go to my YouTube channel, or even my website, there's some posted on my website, but I have a YouTube channel, you'll see my cosmosonic trance banjo. It's a modified, extended banjo experience. And there was some of that in there. It was kind of a support instrument, took a little melody at some point, so it wasn't really featured. But if you know the sound, then you would know it in there.
Thank you. And I have heard and seen those videos of the Cosmic Trance banjo, and that's highly recommended. We'll direct people back to where they can hear more of that stuff in a few minutes. But unfortunately, our time is running out. But I just do want to get one seed topic in there that I've seen you write about very well in various places, and it's the cautionary tale concept, in my view, of frequencyism. Would you like to say very briefly what that's about? We could talk about that for 2 hours, but just a quick download of it.
We'll try to do a very brief thing. Yeah, I write. I mean, there's a forum called the Sound Healing Forum, not a Facebook page, a separate forum. I think that'll be in the links somewhere. I post a lot of my writings there. It's a forum that I host. But frequencyism, I'll just read my definition because as far as I know, I may be the one who coined that term. I have not seen it anywhere else. I certainly coined it for myself. And but whatever, the ownership of the term doesn't mean anything. There is no ownership. Frequencyism, any practice, system, philosophy, dogma, or belief that ascribes special characteristics, attributes, or powers to any specific singularly numbered sonic or electromagnetic frequency. And it's my view that for the most part, frequencyism tends to be a false construct, that the numbers don't exist. Something that is often a surprising thought. It was probably a surprising thought to myself when I realized it, that, if you're talking about a 432, for instance, or 528 frequency, that number does not exist anywhere in that sound. That's only per second, 432 waves per second. Seconds are a man-made construct. We're not living with seconds. There's no seconds passed by. We can't see them, we can't feel them, we can't point them out. We don't listen to sound for precisely 1 second. So the numbers really don't exist. And evidence tends to point to the fact that there is not, a power in 111 hertz, for instance, that you don't also find in 110 or 112. What do you want to bring out on this topic?
I could go on because
that could be controversial.
It triggers some pet peeves, but I think the punchline is that quantification of sound in terms of the convention of cycles per second is just an analytical layer we put upon it, because that's the system of measurement we use to measure the vibration, which is another essence. And there's no element of the number in the thing, sort of like you could measure a thing and it's 12 inches long. You get mystical about the number 12, But then if you go to the metric system, it's now like 30 some odd centimeters long, and all that
Yeah.
numerology is out the window. So people get very creative with that, those sort of speculations, and great, have fun with it, but just don't get too hung up on it as truth in all capital letters. Because
Yeah.
as you were noting, the next layer is that direct personal experience with sound. And some people could listen to the same sound or frequency right next to each other and have a very different journey or experience on it.
Yeah. In the number thing, the frequency thing, again, externalizes the sound experience. Now we're working with something outside of ourselves. Oh, fourth, whatever number, whatever this or that. It becomes an external prescriptive experience as opposed to the direct, the direct revelation, the direct experience, the direct knowing that you experience when you just go into the sound without those constructs.
And I'm not dismissing it out whole cloth. There is value in knowing, analyzing
Of
frequencies,
course.
and
Yeah.
but I think because that sets the foundation for what I think is the next more significant step, is thinking about intervals and ratios and the harmonic
Harmonics.
intervals, which may well be the true structure of the universe, harmonic proportions, but that's a whole other seminar,
In harmonics, numbers are real. Ratios, a fifth, 3 to 2, a fifth to root. The numbers, regardless of what frequency they are, then the numbers come into play. In a very obvious and very measurable way.
Yeah, because that's ratios and intervals, relationships.
Relationships.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
that's the key, quote unquote, higher level of sound healing frequencies, and then they build structures and geometries of physical form, and ultimately consciousness, vehicles for consciousness. So.
And again, with this shamanic sound medicine, one of the primary aspects of it is your relationship with the sound. And as a practitioner, finding your own medicine. In my workshops, if people ask questions, I'll give analytical information if I have it to answer. But the primary work is going into the sound realm, going into the direct experience with sound, and working in that realm, in that alternate paradigm that we started with, learning to become comfortable and to perceive, the energies and the directives in that alternate paradigm that's of direct revelation, direct perception, and then finding your own relationship to that sound, to the medicine. So my medicine, my true medicine, is going to be different than yours. It's going to be different from someone else. Even if we study with the same teachers, there'll be similarities in, we're not all creating entirely new realms, but within those realms, we are going to have individual. And ideally, in an ideal world where we're all working together, someone may come to me for something, and I may assess their situation and say, well, Alec is really the guy you should go see, because what he does really I think is going to resonate with you. I imagine that happening in a place where, we have networks and we say, well, go to that person, go to this person, or I am the right person for you.
Yeah, individual uniqueness. And so I'll just put a bow tie on the very big topic of the frequencyism with, I guess, the summation that, enjoy these speculations and associations with frequencies. But my only thing is just don't get locked into them dogmatically, because the cautionary tale is if you get too stuck in that sort of shuts off the current to the opening to all these other things that Rich has been talking about today. And you've written about these concepts in much more detail and eloquence. We just downloaded the thought. So if people would like to explore more of your writings and ideas, where's the best place to go?
Well, some of them, but not many of them. Some of them are at my website, which is richgoodhart.com. And that's heart without an E, GOODHART, richgoodhart.com. I have some other people's writings there. There's There's an essay by Sarah that I have posted on my website. It's also in my first book. When she was still with us, she gave me permission to share her writing. So that's there. But the place where most of my writings get posted is the Sound Healing Forum. And it's the old style forums, pre-Facebook. I can't tell you the exact URL for it right now, but it'll be in the links, and it's linked at my website.
It
So there's a
will be.
lot of my writings there. Other people's writings there. Jamie, my friend Jamie Bechtold, has a great article on the crystal bowls. Mitch Noor has some great writings there. You know, other people post there as well. And people are invited to post there. So you can post there if you've got writings, Alec. Love to have
Thank
you
you.
contribute.
Thank you for that. I'm sure that will be linked below, and that is highly recommended. It is a great resource with an old school presentation, but it's perennial knowledge that doesn't matter the format and the presentations. There's a lot of great ideas and writings and contributors there. So
And the
on
old
that
school
note,
format is indexed better too. You can Facebook things get lost down the page pretty quickly, but this actually has indexes so you can access.
yes, indexing, that is a great feature. Sometimes Facebook is just a crazy mess trying to find specific things. But one last specific thing before I forget, I also understand that you have an event coming up at the Omega Institute this fall. Would like to tell people where they could find out more about that?
Yeah, it's a weekend retreat workshop, October 7th to 9th, I believe, that weekend. It'll be listed at the Omega website, which is eomega.org, and the Omega Institute in Rhinebeck, New York. It'll also be linked at my website. So it's Sound Medicine Expansive. It's a weekend of going into the sound medicine, you know, the shamanic sound medicine realm, working directly with direct experience with sound. Some of it, you know, with each other, working on healing work with each other, going out into the woods, working with nature. Again, working with these concepts we've been talking about today of direct revelation, personal experience, opening up the sound realm and learning to navigate and operate in the alternate paradigm of sound.
There we go. Well, congratulations on that. And there we go. There's an opportunity for people to get into that theme we've been talking about all this whole hour, getting into the direct experience of sound in a group, because that's where the real magic and mojo happens. And so you can find your way to Rich's website to find out more. But unfortunately, now we have to draw the curtain on this particular journey on the sound current. So I'll just say, Rich, thank you for being here and thank you for sharing today.
Thank you, Alec. Thank you for hosting. Thank you, the Shift Network. And great appreciation for all of this today.
Yes, I hold the Shift Network. And as always, thank you to everyone out there listening, as your attention is what makes this all come to life and be possible. So thanks for being here and come on back, because there's more to come here on the Shift Network Sound Healing Summit. We'll see you next time.